Here now with reaction is House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan and the president of the Government Accountability Institute. He actually got the ball rolling in January of 2018 right here on this show. Phenomenal work. I don't even think he knew how right he was then. Maybe you did, Peter, but it gets deeper every day. Let me start with you, Jim Jordan. He's on the House Intel Committee. He had this relationship with this woman. Then you got the issues involving Hunter and China and the payments and now the new texts and the emails. Why are they our #1 geopolitical foe?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
explain.
They are. No, they are, Sean, and Director Ratcliffe's been very clear about this. But I think we just got to step back and think about this. We've learned all this in 1 week. 1 week we learned Hunter Biden, the guy who took $1 million from the Ukrainian energy company, took $3 million from a Russian billionaire, $4 million from a company with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. We learned he's been under investigation by the Justice Department for 2 years. We learned Swalwell had this relationship with the Chinese spy for years. We learned the Speaker of the House put him and kept him on the Intelligence Committee, knowing all that. And guess what, Sean? The mainstream press, the networks, 26 seconds is all they've given to the Hunter Biden story, and the New York Times is yet to report on the Swalwell story. While John Ratcliffe tells us what a threat China is, that's the kind of coverage we get from the mainstream press. This is what drives Americans crazy. This is what is so frustrating about this town, and in particular, how bad the mainstream press is today.
Have you heard what I've heard from sources? I've not seen it myself, but I've been briefed by people who have seen it. What exactly is on this laptop that they never denied was his? If anything, the attorney for Hunter pretty much confirmed it was his when he said, I'd like to get my client's computer back. Have you heard what I've heard?
Well, I have not heard specifics, Sean. What I do know is the FBI had it for a stinking year. Why don't we? I mean, where is this investigation at, and why we didn't know about it? There is no way in the world anyone will ever convince me people in the press didn't know about the fact that Hunter Biden was under investigation back in October when Bob Alinsky came forward on your network. There is no way you can convince me people in the press didn't. Everything else leaks from the Justice Department, but somehow no one in the press knew about this. And so when the press won't cover real stories and big tech censors conservatives, and you have a third of the electorate who thinks the election was rigged, that is not a healthy place for our country. And so much of I think is to blame is the media. This is a dangerous situation we find ourselves in. I hope, as Rand Paul said and you had in your intro, I hope that the Justice Department will do the right thing and do a real investigation and get the truth to the American people.
My bet is they're going to try and spike it. Peter Schweitzer, all right, you've now had an opportunity. You've read the Johnson Grassley report. You broke the ice here, January of 2018, right on this program. Are there things you're learning now, or maybe suspicions that you had that are now getting corroborated more and more? And where do you see where you were then versus now?
Yes, Sean. We see a lot of interesting developments. We always believed that the Chinese were trying to curry favor with the Bidens, and the Bidens were willing to play. We certainly had the money flow, we had the deals, but now with the laptop, with the emails, that includes emails from Hunter Biden's business partners like Bevan Cooney, but also Hunter Biden's emails themselves, we realize how the Biden family actually operates in this commercial space. And what I mean, Sean, is that it's pretty clear in Hunter's own words in some of these emails that he's receiving this money from overseas, but he's also paying a lot of the family's bills, including his father's and his mother's, with these foreign, gains, these foreign funds. So the point is, this is not just about Hunter Biden getting wealthy, and it's not just a question of the intelligence and the national security threat. This is an issue of enrichment involving Joe Biden himself, and that's part of what needs to be investigated here. Joe Biden is, being supportive of his son, but he's also kind of distancing himself from his son, and that's just not simply how the family's operated, and that needs to remain front and center as we look to a Biden administration coming ahead.
But you've known about Bob Alinsky for a long time, the big guy, all of these little connections. Now the text messages that came out tonight that we've acquired here at Fox News, they all seem to corroborate a level of knowledge, one, which Biden himself denied, that was not previously known, and number two, To me, it shows a level that he had to know. There's no way he didn't know. Just like when he's bragging, you got 6 hours, fire that prosecutor who it turns out was investigating his son being paid millions with no experience.
Yeah, exactly right, Sean. I mean, they're using the tools of the vice presidency to get these deals. I mean, Hunter flew over on Air Force Two to Beijing. You don't think on the 20-hour flight that father and son didn't have a conversation about what Hunter was doing there, and that when Hunter introduced him to his Chinese business partner on that trip, there were no questions asked? Of course they were. I mean, all you have to do is look at Joe Biden's statements over the years, over the decades, of how close the family is, and Jill Biden's statements that Hunter is kind of the heartbeat of the family. And it starts to create this picture. I applaud the fact that the Bidens are a close-knit family, but you can't say you're a close-knit family and be a close-knit family, but then pretend that these commercial deals are never discussed, there's no conversation, there's no interaction. So that's where I think the reporting needs to go next.
And Jim Jordan, last question in less than a minute. Okay, the Chinese are good at espionage. You know what? My question is, I got to assume that they probably already have Hunter's laptop, and what I'm being told is on there. This is going to get very ugly very fast. What would the Chinese likely have on both Joe and Hunter? Do we have to assume a lot?
Well, I think you probably do. I mean, it's anyone's guess, but I think the assumption is, and when you're thinking about someone as dangerous as China, you got to assume the worst. But it's worse than what you said. It's not just documents and emails, Sean. We have an eyewitness. You had him on the network. Tucker interviewed him. Tony Bobulinski was an eyewitness. He said himself, the big guy is a reference to Joe Biden. He was part of this arrangement when it started, saw where it was headed, and got out. So you have an eyewitness to it all, and still the mainstream press refuses to cover it. That to me is so wrong, and so wrong for the American people not to be able to have the information, and for the press not to cover real stories.
All right, Peter Schweitzer, thank you. Congressman Jordan, thank you. We will stay on it here with more.